The 5-game winning streak from your Monsters of the Midway is over. The Bears lose another close one to the Packers in Lambeau by the score of 28-21. Are you still a believer in the Chicago Bears? We'll give you the post-mortem recap coming up. In the rest of the NFL, injuries and more upsets took place yesterday. Will the trend continue tonight with the Eagles and Chargers? In basketball, the Chicago Bulls are just an embarrassment. Will this situation ever turn around? In baseball, only one member is voted into the Hall of Fame. Do baseball fans take the Hall of Fame seriously, or is it still a prestige establishment in all of sports? That in special edition of Old School TV Monday, and in the college football playoff, some team decided to take that ball and go home. We'll give you that team and so much more as the Monday edition of Second City Sports starts right now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one, a drive into left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! Robert Jr., his fourth of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edman back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide, up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Bennington, no chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard. Wow.
Getting what a pass. Buzelis with the fake on the drive.
They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb throws. Middle of the field. Loveland catch. Breaks away the 30. Loveland 20. Loveland 10. Loveland end zone. Touchdown Bears.
Welcome to this Football Monday edition. Not a Bears Victory Monday, unfortunately. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in the color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she. I'm Sidney Brown. You know here. You know it's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, again at IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We're unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion, do not 2 hour extravaganza we call the Sports Talk Radio Show. You better hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up of the screen for you. But decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid. I'll forget LaKeena full powers to give you dumbos to build and be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to our live game. That's LIVE Live Entertainment Game. That's checking us out right now on our Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels at 12:19 p.m. Central Standard Time. But let's not forget much love to the replay game, checking us out on the replay, also at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Don't you ever forget our motto where we talk sports, music, or entertainment. We will always provide.
We invite you to the best here on Second City Sports, and we're going to play around with a theme here, a bone to pick, I guess, for this show on various sports. Of course, we got a special edition of Old School TV Monday. Tough weekend for the Blackhawks as they were outscored 13-1 this weekend. And the Bulls, they continue to downward slide. College football playoffs, there was a team actually, there were quite a few teams that said, nope, we're done for the year. Also, two little college hoops as the Big Ten started conference play already. They're the first conference to do that. Baseball, again, I got a bone to pick with the Hall of Fame Veterans Committee. We'll talk about that. And, of course, could the Cubs, I should say, be zeroing in on a top pitcher? We'll talk about that and so much more. But of course, we're going to talk week 14 of the NFL and, of course, Bears and Packers. And, unfortunately, the Bears' win streak is over with as they lose to the Packers. And they didn't get blown out. We all figured that wasn't going to happen, but they lose 28-21 to the Packers. 234 yards for Jordan Love and 3 TDs and interception. Josh Jacobs, 86 rushing yards and a TD. On the flip side, Caleb Williams, 2 TDs, 186 yards, and an interception. A key interception, unfortunately, that killed it. Thanks to Keyshawn Nixon. We'll talk about that. CJ Johnson had the interception for Jordan Love very early on. So, Sid, look, I was the only one of all the three of us and our girl KXRB's Christine Manica, picked the Packers because of this reason. Once again, they had a slow start. Well, it was kind of a slow start for both teams, but especially when it got to the second quarter, of course, you give the Bears credit for coming back fine, but too many people just gave up. The defense gave up too many plays. Josh Jacobs, you saw that run where there were like 4 Bears that could have tackled him. They didn't get him. Then, of course, a couple of key plays late. So there's plenty of blame to go around. I know some people want to blame Caleb. Some people want to blame the defense. I would say some of the plays should go on Ben Johnson, too, for that, especially for that last play for the Bears. Why are you going a bootleg? Why are you going on a fake bootleg on fourth? We only need 1 yard. And plus the timing thing with they got it all the way down to like under 30 seconds where they didn't leave themselves enough time. So I think, unfortunately, all that stuff that happened with the Bears of, all the cardiac Bears and stuff like that, it all came to a head this game. And look, I'm not going to say this is going to start with a downward spiral for the Bears, but this what just showed you is why I was not all up on the Bears, drinking the Bears Kool-Aid, if you will, with this whole thing.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it was the tale of two halves. The first half, the Bears offense was MIA to be exact. They averaged 2.5 yards per play. Let me repeat that again. 2.5 yards per play in that first half. As you mentioned in the second half, wherever was said in that locker room, where adjustments were made, it came alive in that third quarter. They outscored the Packers by 4 points in that third quarter to get back in the game to tie it at 28 before Josh Jacobs did his thing to give the Packers the game-winning touchdown late in the fourth quarter. Caleb Williams, he was not great in that first half. It was very good in that second half until their last play. We'll break that down coming up. Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift, they were both very good in the running game. Both of them didn't get the yards that we accustomed to seeing for both of them, but they were effective enough that Green Bay defense was starting to wear down. Number 3, going to Green Bay side, Micah Parsons. I know he didn't get a sack yesterday, but as we told you on the show on Friday, he can move around any part of the defensive line for the Green Bay Packers. He can play linebacker if he wants to. He can play on the right side of the defensive line. He can play in the middle as a nose tackle. He can play on the left side of the line. Some of those shows that Caleb Williams when he was throwing off his backside in that second half, Micah Parsons has something to do with that. If you guys were paying attention yesterday, the Bears, I think, got caught off guard with the Packers' speed on defense, especially on their defensive line to start off the game, but they readjusted in that second half. But LaKeena, as you talked about, and I agree with you to a large extent, and especially in the early part of the season, mental errors will cost this team in the playoffs. You got away with it against the bad teams that you beat early in the year, but teams like the Rams, the 49ers, yesterday against the Packers, should you face Philadelphia in the playoffs this year, Philadelphia is going to be very much prepared. And if you make a mistake against them, the defending world champs, is potentially is going to cost you as well. So hopefully that Ben Johnson and his coaching staff are taking this film and relaying to the players that, hey, these are the things that we got to clean up. We're a damn good football team. Let's clean it up. Get ready for Cleveland next week. Hopefully these mistakes will never happen again.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you, recapping Bears Packers from yesterday. And if you saw the post mortem stuff, Keyshawn Nixon, of course, who made that game-saving interception for the Packers, he said, and of course I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he basically said that he saw that what the bootleg was going to be. Of course, if you guys saw on last week against the Eagles, the Bears actually ran that same play. They tried to do it again on 4th and 1. So it's almost that they knew, and it seemed like that whole thing. Like I said, we'll talk about it a little bit more about it. To get close to a break, but it seems like Ben. Of course, there was this little battle between Ben Johnson and Matt LaFleur, playful and whatever. It seems like, I think ego, I'm going to say it, and I know some people may take it the wrong way, but just bear with me. It seems like the ego kind of got in the way of Ben Johnson, because if you thought that you could do the same play against the and not think that the Packers weren't going to be ready for it. They were ready for it, and Mixon was actually supposed to be by Komet, and of course, Caleb, that ball was horribly underthrown in the beginning with anyway, and Nixon was right there to take it. He had DJ Moore right down the other side that he could have walked into the end zone on the other side. So that whole thing was just, but this is sort of one of those things where it seems like ego got the best of some of these things. And look, we know how these Bears teams get. You think that you start strutting around and stuff like that. You start believing your own hype, and unfortunately, you get knocked back into reality, and that's what happened yesterday.
But I will rebuttal with you with this as of right now. Remember back in 2018, LaKeena, we were all behind Matt Nagy and the Bears marching on their way to a 12-4 the NFC North Division title. Remember things fell apart that next year in 2019 after that playoff loss to Philadelphia. What happened? They were finger pointing. There was some guys that were starting to point their fingers at the media, trying to start media beats via social media, and that group did not know how to handle success. As of right now, as of December 8th, 2025, I don't see that rebellious trait with this group yet. Yes, you're disappointed that they lost yesterday, but I do not see a rebellious trait with this group. We'll see what happens when they get to the playoffs, but I don't see a trait, that rebellious negative trait with this group, because Ben Johnson has his finger on the pulse with this team, and the players have respect for him. So I don't think as of right now that's going to happen, despite what happened yesterday. Now, as you mentioned, that last play of the game, I saw that replay as well on the All 22 film here on YouTube, that DJ Moore was open in the right corner end. So like you said, if you could have called the same play, but DJ Moore could have played as as a tight end, in which he did. He was open in the right corner in the end zone. If Caleb would have thrown it even just half speed, and his passes really cut through that cold wind like he did yesterday, like you said, DJ Moore could have walked it in for a touchdown. We'll be playing in overtime right now. And this is a question I want to ask you, LaKeena. And I saw David Hall from CHSN at 670 The Score. He was on Fox 32 Chicago Sports Tonight. He brought up this question. I'll bring it up to you. Assuming that the Bears scored that potential game-tying touchdown, do you think that, and this actually ran across my mind watching it in real time, do you think that would have been a great decision for Ben Johnson to go for two, assuming they were to score, to make that, it would have made the game 28-27? If you were Ben Johnson, if you were watching that game yesterday live, if Ben Johnson would have called that 2-point play, whether it worked or not, would you agree with that decision? If that would have been the go-ahead decision after if they would have scored that game time?
You play the odds. You play the odds, and look, if you go to overtime, and look, both teams will get a chance at overtime because of new rules. So be it. But I would say just to take your chances in overtime, because if you make it and you miss it, people are going to be saying, "Well, why'd you go for two?" So in no situation, you always play the odds, and you just take your chance at overtime. If you lose, fine. If you win, that's even better. So, but I think I saw somewhere where he would have went for two anyway. But like I said, it didn't happen, so it's all kind of moot here. But yeah, I think for me, this whole thing with this Bears squad is that this is still a work in progress. Have they made some inroads? Yeah. And look, I'm gonna say if my hungry bear goes to DeAndre Swift, I think 63 yards, he probably should have gotten the ball in that fourth down. And that whole thing was just a bad decisions all around in that final possession, especially when it got deep into Packers territory in the red zone. But I guess again, what do I know? So I think for me, this whole thing is just, like I said, I think that there were a lot of things that happened yesterday, that a lot of things got exposed. Let's be honest there. And I think if you're the Bears, I think the defense is a concern. It is, because only one sack. I mean, as our buddy Big Dave Watson would say over at CHEO Bulls, unfortunately, Jordan Love's jersey was pretty clean for the most part. So,
Yeah, I'll give my thoughts about the defense when we return. Now I'll give my most hungriest bear, and of course we'll recap the rest of the action from Week 14 in the NFL coming up after the break. But I'll wrap up by saying this about the mental mistakes. Kevin Byard on that touchdown pass to Bo Melton toward the end of that first half, that cannot happen. Yes, we know miscommunication happens at times, but especially during that crucial part of the game where the Packers, you could have had them at their heels just at 7 points going into the locker room. But I thought there was a momentum change of the game, and you mentioned too, which led to that game-winning touchdown by Josh Jacobs on that 3rd-and-1 play. The Bears decided to turn to those bad Lovie Smith teams in 2011, 2012, where they refused to tackle and just swipe at the legs. No, you got to bear hug them and throw them to the ground. So little things like that will come back to bite you in the butt.
We'll talk more Bears, Packers, and a little Week 14 NFL slate includes something does include a couple upsets and some key injuries that could derail a couple of teams' playoff chances. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. More NFL talk coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGetty, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports. So there's Football Monday edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow McKeena again on the Twitter, X, and Kills again on IG.
As we wrap up our Bears conversation and review the rest of the action from the National Football League from yesterday, this will be our topic for to wrap up our Football Power Hour. If you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects, you definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the opening screen for you.
Finishing up our Bears Packers recap. Who's your hungriest Bear quickly?
My hungriest bear is Luther Burden III, the rookie wide receiver out of Missouri. 4 catches for 67 yards. He had a 27-yard reception in that second half. He fielded nicely, in my opinion, for the injured Rome Odunze. As we said during the NFL draft, I like that pick from GM Ryan Poles because you have DJ Moore, you have Rome Odunze. In my opinion, both those guys are the same receiver, but you need a guy to stretch the field. Luther Burden has been coming on the last couple of weeks. Remember, he also had a run yesterday from the backfield. He's been used in the backfield for the last 2 or 3 weeks. And yesterday, filling in for Rome Odunze. I know the numbers don't look sexy to some people, but I thought he did an effective job. So Luther Burden III is my hungry bear. Once again, 4 catches for 67 yards. And the longest reception was for 27 yards. Just quickly wrapping up on the mental errors. LaKeena, late in the game, the defensive line almost had a goal line stand against the Packers. Austin Booker was called for offsides. You cannot do that, especially when the opponent has the ball in the red zone and trying to go ahead of you. Critical mistakes like that, as we talked about earlier, you cannot let that happen against better teams because they're going to take advantage of that. And the Green Bay Packers were 8 for 13 on third down. We talked about the defense earlier. They started off hot early with that CJ Gardner interception along that Montez Sweat sack, but after that, that defense melted down, and the business model for them was 2 turnovers or more. They win every game. Well, you're not going to create 3 or 4 turnovers every game, especially against better teams. So you saw that what happened yesterday, especially with your defense giving up 8 conversions out of 13 on third down. That just cannot happen. As I said on the show last Friday, I'll say it here again today. I know people talk about metrics. Well, it's about pressure on the quarterback. Yes, it's also about sacking him as well for loss of yardage. And we did not see that on a consistent basis yesterday. We haven't seen it on a consistent basis all year long. Hopefully that turns around against a lesser opponent in Cleveland coming up next Sunday.
Going into the rest of the Week 14 slate here, the Dolphins, they're getting their 6 and 7. They took care of business against the Jets, 34-10. Tua had 127 yards, but it was really the rushing attack. Jalen Wright and Devin Akane combined for almost 200 yards and a TD apiece. On the flip side for the Jets, Tyrod Taylor got knocked out early. Brady Cook stepped in. 2 interceptions, was sacked 6 times. So, yeah, that's basically kind of it there. But, yeah, Spiro Diaz and the gang had this call for CBS. And unfortunately, this game was not one of the better games for them yesterday.
Yeah, I said on Friday during that picks that Tua Tagovailoa was 1-7 in cold weather games. Well, make it 2-7. The Dolphins and the Jets offense made fools out of me. The Jets defense did not show up. They didn't have an offense outside that special teams touchdown in that opening quarter. The Jets went 3 points the rest of the way. The Dolphins did what they had to do. And shout out to that backup running back Jalen Wright. I'm talking about for the Dolphins. 24 carries, 107 yards. 7 yards rushing in a touchdown. The Dolphins scoring on their first 3 possessions in touchdowns. That was the difference in the game. So you mentioned the Dolphins are 6 and 7. Can we say they have a tough game next week? I believe at Pittsburgh. But can we say that they can seriously make a push for the playoffs? I think it's a little bit too late, but they've been playing well over the last month since they fired their GM.
I don't think they'll make the playoff run, but they could make things interesting. But the AFC is too loaded, so I don't think that's going to happen. Going to the AFC, I actually watched a little bit of this game on this computer screen here. Pittsburgh beat Baltimore 27-22. Aaron Rodgers 284 yards and a TD. Lamar Jackson only 219 yards and a TD at a games. And an unfortunate interception for James Pierre, who actually, it turns out, is his first cousin, mind you. So, yeah, that's going to be a little awkward around Christmas time. Zay Flowers, 124 yards. Unfortunately, there was a touchdown pass that was called back. Apparently, it was a catch, but it looked like for what I saw, it was a catch. But even still, I mean, with the Steelers, I guess, have the edge in the division right now. 7 and 6 and 6 and 7. They actually do face each other again in a couple of weeks. So I'm sure they're going to want their revenge. That could be for. The AFC North title. We'll see. But Just a bad break for Baltimore. But even still, I mean, Baltimore's got a tough schedule too. So they got to play the Patriots and the Packers. In addition to, of course, you're going against Cincinnati on Sunday. But just a really tough game all around for the Ravens. But the good for the Steelers, they now have the edge in that division.
Yeah, DK Metcalf proved his worth for the Pittsburgh Steelers. 7 catches for 148 yards, and both of them are season highs for him. On the flip side, Derrick Henry for Baltimore, he was the only uh, consistent player on offense, in my opinion. 25 carries for 94 yards. Let's be real here, LaKeena. I know he is probably going to admit this after the season, whenever that is, but we all know that Lamar Jackson has been dealing with various injuries all year long, and it continued yesterday. As I said on the show last Friday during our picks, even though we all picked the Ravens, that Baltimore offense has looked schizophrenic at times, and now we know part of the reason why. And for Pittsburgh, Aaron Rodgers looked like a decent, above average quarterback. Their Pittsburgh's defense did enough, including that last play of the game, to sack Lamar Jackson. They made the plays when they had to down the stretch to win the game. So Pittsburgh, like you say, is in control of that division right now. I think Pittsburgh, if they win this division, they'll probably win 10 games. But as of right now, it looks like 9-8 is going to win this AFC North. And if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, what we were talking about in a second, you'll have to be shaking your head right now.
We'll get to Cincinnati in a bit here. Going to the NFC South now. Unfortunately, if you're Tampa, especially with the Panthers, right there, right behind you, this could be a loss that could come back to bite you. They lose to the Saints 24-20. Tyler Show had a couple of rushing TDs and such. Baker Mayfield didn't have his best day, only 122 yards and a TD and an interception. Sean Tucker had a rushing TD. Bucky Irving, 55 yards. I'm all choked up here about this. But yeah, I mean, this was a bad loss for the Bucs.
Yeah, no, we all picked Tampa Bay on this panel on our show last Friday. We said that the Saints would not go away, even though the Saints have one of the worst records in football. It's a division opponent, and the Saints usually give Tampa Bay trouble, and they have over the last recent years, especially when now Fox NFL analyst Tom Brady was quarterback in the Buccaneers. The Saints always gave the Buccaneers trouble down there in Tampa. So yesterday's score should have been that surprise. You mentioned Tyler Show. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. It was just like the Bears game yesterday. It was a tale of two halves. The Buccaneers were in control in that first half. The Saints took control in that second half. And also, too, the Saints, all know that without Alvin Kamara, they haven't had any consistent rushing with consistency. But Devin Neal stepped up for the Saints yesterday. 19 carries, 70 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, just a bad loss for that Bucs squad. So it doesn't get any easier for the Bucs either. So this is going to be interesting to see what happens. They play Atlanta, and 2 of their last 3 after that are against the Panthers. That last game could end up being very well for that division and for a playoff spot. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Now, of course, most of the nation got this game on CBS, including here in Chicago. Jacksonville took care of business against the Colts, 36-19. Trevor Lawrence threw for 2 TDs, 244 yards. Travis Etienne had 2 rushing TDs and such. On the flip side, unfortunately, Daniel Jones, I saw it live. He knew, especially the way he slammed his helmet, tore his Achilles. He's done for the year. Yeah. Riley Leonard came in 145 yards. Jonathan Taylor only 74 rushing yards. Just not good all around. And after that loss to the Chiefs a couple weeks ago, it's been kind of free falling for the Colts ever since. And especially with now Jones being out, that could very well end up being all she wrote for the Colts and their playoff chances.
Yeah, I said the same thing the next day after they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, that this could be how they handle this could be the beginning of the end for the Colts. Obviously, you don't want you do not wish anybody to get injured, but with Daniel Jones to have that injured left fibula, you overcompensate. Unfortunately, that's what happened. Injured his right Achilles with him being put on the shelf for the year. But Jonathan Taylor is going to have to step up now. That Colts defense is going to have to step up. They haven't been playing well on the road all year, 2-4 away from the horseshoe. So things will get a whole lot interesting. I think the AFC playoff picture in the wild card will flip upside down. On the flip side for the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence looked like an above-average quarterback, 2 touchdown passes off of 17 and 30 for 244 yards. Brian Thomas Jr., the second-year wide receiver, he had 3 catches for 87 yards. As I said the last couple of weeks, the Jaguars defense is sneaky good, and with a couple more wins, they could be in the playoffs. Maybe perhaps as a division champs. We'll see about that. But I think the Jaguars are surprising some people, and I think they'll make the playoffs.
Now again, now it could get interesting though, especially in that with that AFC South. Now they did split their season series with. Well, we'll talk about the Texans in a bit here, but for me, I just think that it's going to be, this is going to be these last, 3 or 4 games. These last 4 games, of course, they got the Jets but then they got the Broncos and the Colts and the Titans to finish up the season. Now we've seen this happen before, where they had a shot at perhaps maybe clinching the playoff spot, and it didn't happen. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll see where everybody is by that point. But that's going to be an interesting part of what's to come here these next few weeks.
Yeah, so as we say every year around this time, we say it in baseball too, to a lesser extent in basketball, but in football the most. When we get to this time of the year, teams that do not have anything to play for in terms of playoff spots, they're playing for jobs, and the opponent that they're playing across from them, they know that they're headed towards the playoffs. We want that number 1 seed, or we can get a better positioning, blah blah blah, or we had just to win this game to get in the playoffs. Your opponent from across from you, you play with such a free spirit, you play with nothing to lose, and sometimes upsets happen. We see it at least a couple of times every year in the National Football League. So, like you say, if Jacksonville fails to make the playoffs, we'll know why. But the dangerous teams are not the teams that are going to the playoffs. Usually, the teams that have nothing to play for in terms of playoff spots. They're playing for their jobs, and if they can, the opponent across from them, they can quote unquote wreck their season or alter a little bit. They can take pride and say, "Well, we didn't have a great season, but we affected that team's playoffs positioning, or we knocked them out of the playoffs altogether."
Going to Cleveland, of course, the Bears next upon the Browns. They lose to the Titans. It ended up being a pretty entertaining game, 31-29. Cam Ward threw for 2 TDs, 117 yards. But it was Tony Pollard that was the story, 161 rushing yards and 2 TDs there. Shedeur Sanders, 2 TDs, 364 yards. He also had a rushing TD as well. Christian Jenkins rushed for 26 yards. And if you saw Kevin Stefanski's comments right before we came on, he said that it's basically Shedeur's show through the rest of the season. So, the Bears will be seeing him on Sunday. Now, the Titans, you get their second win of the season. So, again, you got to think that, both these teams are going to be giving some teams, the playoff teams, would be playoff teams fits. So, as we go down the line here in these last months of the season.
Yeah, Cleveland's still trying to figure things out. Shedeur Sanders did post a better performance with over 364 yards. Seeing Miles rack up his sack total yesterday. Maybe he's waiting until they come to Chicago to do damage against the Bears. But the Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward didn't have that great of a game, but you mentioned he was bailed out by Tony Pollard. And just one from this game, LaKeena. What the hell happened on that 2-point conversion for the Browns? They look like me playing background football with some of the neighborhood kids from back in the day. That was ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't know what was actually the actual play there, but there was definitely some miscommunication in that play that would have at least tied it, at least forced overtime. Unfortunately, that ended up not being the case for Cleveland. So that's another one of those weird endings there. Vikings, no trouble with the Commanders, 31-0. JJ McCarthy, his best game of the season after that first Bears game, 3 TDs, 76 rushing yards for Aaron Jones, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Josh Oliver, I should say, had 2 of those 3 TD. Unfortunately, though, Will Daniels hurt his elbow, and Mariota came in. They each threw an interception. It looks like it's basically a lost season here for the Commanders after a great showing last year. And then, now I guess, Dan Quinn's got a lot to say, kind of answer some questions unfortunately, because once again, you had Daniels out there in the last season. So there are a lot of people in Washington that are questioning that. But the Vikings, look, they won't go to the playoffs, obviously, but yeah, this is a good confidence boost for McCarthy, especially.
Yeah, the $1 million question is: will JJ McCarthy be your starting quarterback next year for the Vikings? That's something that the GM and the rest of the staff is going to have to answer for next year. McCarthy gave him a reason to consider him for the job next year with that performance. On the flip side for Washington, you definitely do not want to say this for a professional athlete. They really do not want to try to do this. But I thought that the Commanders quit yesterday despite that injury to Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, they looked really bad on that part there. Now, Seattle took care of business against Atlanta, as we all figured that they would. 37-9, 249 yards, 3 TDs for Sam Darnold. Jack Smith and Jigba, 92 receiving yards and 2 TDs. On the flip side, Kirk Cousins, well, I guess he didn't like his performance, 2 interceptions. Bijan Robinson only had 86 rushing yards and such, but congrats to Mike McDonald, the head coach. He's the first head coach, in their franchise history to win back-to-back, 10-win seasons. No, Pete Carroll did not do that, oddly enough. And also the defense, they have not allowed a 100-yard rusher for the 22nd straight game, which is the longest streak in the NFL.
Yeah, as we talked about on the show last week, Seattle could be, as I mentioned, Seattle could be one of those teams that can surprise some people in the playoffs, especially if they get home field advantage. Their defense is very good. It's not the Legion of Boom, but it's sneaky, very good. You mentioned Sam Darnold taking control of that offense for Seattle. Kenneth Walker III, he's a very good running back, and he's very effective, and he can extend the drives for the Hawks. So on the flip side for the Falcons, season's over. Kirk Cousins should retire, and maybe he can do like Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston did yesterday, put on a network blazer.
We'll get to that in a second with those two on the network. I think they both did pretty well on their respective shows. Excuse me. Yesterday, Devin Witherspoon and Nick Manwan had each had an interception for the Seahawks. So not the Legion of Boom, but yeah, that's a pretty solid defense they got out there in Seattle. Now, the last of the noon games finally. Speaking of Cincinnati, we were talking about it earlier. 39-34, Buffalo beat the Bengals, and Joe Burrow, Josh Allen threw for 3 TDs. James Cook 80 rushing yards, but it was a pick 6 by Christian Benford that kind of broke the game up. It was kind of back and forth for a little bit, but yeah, that Benford pick 6 kind of blew the game open for the Bills there. Burrow had 4 TDs, but also again that pick 6 kind of killed whatever momentum that's since he had. T. Higgins also had a couple TD catches as well for the Bengals in a losing effort there. But yeah, it was really the Bills defense has been kind of maligned a little bit most of the season. They made big plays when they had to.
Yeah, for the Buffalo Bills, I like the way they used their tight ends, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. Both of them were very effective against that Cincinnati defense. On the flip side, for the Bengals, Joe Burrow had a great game until those back-to-back picks, which one of them led to, you mentioned, 6 points for Buffalo to basically put that game away. The only problem, I said this last year during the after the AFC Championship game, is more glaring this year. If Buffalo's going to win the Super Bowl, they got to do much better job on defense, especially in their secondary. Their secondary has been trash all year, and I don't know how you're going to fix it between now and the playoffs, but they got to be somewhat effective on defense and stopping people. They got away with it because it's Cincinnati, but when you go up against teams like the Chargers or some of these other teams that we're going to talk about in the AFC, you're in the Patriots, who they'll see next week. Something's got to give here, and I know Buffalo can outscore most teams, but when it comes to the playoffs, you're not going to get games like that. You got to come up with some big plays on defense. And Buffalo just has been lacking in that area all year.
Yeah, that could be a thing here that might kill Buffalo in the end, but we'll see what happens there. As Second City Sports on Sports Chicago, LaKeena McGee, Sidney Brown with you as we recap Week 14 in the NFL. And as we go into the afternoon games, there are only 2 other afternoon games besides the Packers-Bears game. The Broncos held on against the Raiders. I know that 24-17, I know that score was a little bit kind of indicative, but it not really didn't tell the whole story. 12 yards for Bo Nix, 75 rushing yards for RJ Harvey, and a rushing TD. Cortland Sutton led the way in receiving yards. Geno Smith did have a TD. Kenny Pickett, I think Smith got hurt, but Pickett came in. He threw a TD as well. Kind of a garbage TD there, but again, like you said, again, not the prettiest performance by the Broncos, but again, they did just enough to beat the Raiders, and well, they're gonna have to do their best performance because they're gonna be facing the Packers team on next Sunday, and yeah, that's gonna be the key here. And I know a lot of Bears fans gonna be cheering for the Broncos, but yeah, again, they did just enough to, but they did just enough to win that game though against the Raiders yesterday.
Have you ever seen a dominant 24-17 performance? If you have, please let me know, because that's the Broncos were in control of that game yesterday from start to finish. Shout out to Marvin Mims Jr. with that kickoff return, which proved to be the difference maker for the Broncos. On the flip side for the Raiders, Geno Smith got knocked out with an injury. And that offense of the Raiders looked terrible. I know they scored 10 points to close the gap, but Denver was dominant all the way. I don't know about you, LaKeena, but for the Raiders, you think that Tom Brady would be more involved in these offseason decisions? Because remember, he wanted Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson said no. He came here to Chicago. We've seen what happened. Do you think Pete Carroll could be one and done?
Well, and it's gonna be maybe. I know that he's probably one that he probably should have stayed retired. I'm sure. Probably. I think we don't. But then again, though, we don't know how much involved, because remember, he has a very small stake. I'm talking about Brady on the team, so I don't know how much how much decisions is he able to make. So again, the Raiders are just in flux right now, and with everything. I know Max Crosby. I wouldn't be surprised if in the offseason he decide. I know he would decide that big contract, but I wouldn't be surprised if he asked for a trade or something, or maybe just clean house. But yeah, they already fired I think their OC. So I don't know what's gonna happen with that.
Yeah, Chip Kelly's out of there. So yep. Mm-hmm.
So let me just see what happens there now. Raiders, the Rams I should say, they took care of business. They did their thing. 45-17 over the Cardinals. Matt Stafford threw for 3 TDs, but it was Blake Corum who had 128 yards and 2 rushing TDs for the Rams. As well, Puka Nacua had 2 of those 3 TD catches from Stafford. Jacoby Brissett, 2 TDs, 271 yards. And Michael Wilson in a losing effort there, 2 TDs as receiving TDs for the Cardinals. Nice bounce back win for the Rams. I know they were not. We said that they were going to be they weren't going to be in a very good mood after losing to the Panthers, but they should have won that game. But yeah, they took it out on Arizona, and we knew that was gonna. And exactly that's what happened.
Yeah, 2 things quickly from this game. I watched the majority of this game live via this computer screen. One, Matthew Stafford reinserted his name into the MVP race, and number 2, Kyler Murray probably has played his last game in the Arizona Cardinals uniform.
Well, he's done a contract, so we'll have to wait and see what they do here. It might be a lot of time to clean house out there in Arizona. Now, going into the Sunday nighter in Arrowhead, I don't think anybody had this score, but 28-10, Houston beat KC at Arrowhead, 203 yards for CJ Stroud. But it was really the defense for the Texans. They caught 3 interceptions from Pat Mahomes. He definitely won his worst showing this season. 59 rushing yards as he led the Chiefs there. And unfortunately, they've won. Well, on the flip side, though, for the Texans, they won 5 in a row. They're right there in the thick of it in the AFC South, and they're starting to kind of, get it going here, especially after that slow start early in the season. So I'm wondering, like Kamari Lassiter, if you saw him after the game, after Coach Ryan told him, you guys are gonna be off for the rest of a couple of days. I think they look you earned that those couple of days off. So. You be celebrating too, but yeah, nice win for the Texans. And well, are we starting to kind of see the back end of this Chiefs dynasty, or however you want to say it?
Yeah, they are the AFC West contingent. As we told you that when Denver beat them last month. Now the Chiefs gonna have to win and get help to get into the playoffs. I don't see that this year. Patrick Mahomes looks like a shell of himself over the last couple of years. I get it; he has that big contract, but we have big contracts like he has, and on the flip side, Chris Jones, there, fine defensive tackle. You have to maneuver some things around the salary cap. We're starting to see that come to fruition now. Travis Kelsey is a shell of himself. As we said that coming into the year. Looks like he may hang it up after this year. He looks like a shell of himself. And that Chiefs offense, as I said, we mentioned this with Baltimore earlier. They look pedestrian, and that's a lot of things to have to change there in Kansas City in the offseason. There's got to be a major reset. Now, are they going to tear it down and build it back up? No, you're not going to go into a rebuild, but the Chiefs go ahead to hopefully get some draft picks to play with. They need some offensive line help, and they definitely need another pass rusher or two.
All right, so again, they still got a shot at the playoffs, but yeah, it's going to be tough because they probably got to win out. They have the Chargers this weekend, and after that, I mean, who knows? But they got to need a lot of help, and they got to take care of business as well. So studs and does for Week 14. Quickly go.
All right, Dawson knocked 6 catches, 93 yards as the Bills outlast the Bengals 39-34. My second stud will go to Jackson Smith and Jimba, the star wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. 7 catches, 92 yards, and 2 touchdowns as the Seahawks dominate the Falcons on the road 37-9. And my third stud will go to Tyler Show. 13 of 20, 144 yards and an interception, but 2 key rushing touchdowns in the second half as the Saints upset the Buccaneers 24-20 on the road.
All right. Houston, my first 3 studs are Houston. That defense is one hell of a defense. They got 3 interceptions yesterday from Mahomes, and I think that's just the first time that has happened where as a defense has kept the 2 MVPs from scoring. Not giving up ATD passes, 10 times sack and 5 interceptions against both Mahomes and Josh Allen. So that's very impressive performance there by them. Seattle, I really, the whole Seattle squad, they've been looking really good, kind of quietly, coming in because the Rams are going to be getting all the attention, of course, the Bears as well. So yeah, I think Seattle might be sneaking up on some folks. We'll see. And I'll say Pittsburgh. I mean, the Pittsburgh defense, we know they've been kind of maligned most of the season. They made the big plays when they had to, and they were able to beat the Ravens. So those are my 3 studs and duds real quick.
3 duds, 1 Kirk Cousins of the Atlanta Falcons, 2 interceptions. My second dud will go to that Baltimore Ravens offense, especially that last play of the game. As we talked about earlier, Lamar Jackson, he's definitely injured. He does not look right, and that Ravens team is starting to fall apart before our eyes as they lose to Pittsburgh Steelers 27-22. And my third dud will go to the Las Vegas Raiders. Just that whole organization. It needs a purge big time.
Yep. Let's see here. My 3 duds real quick. I think Washington, they basically gave up yesterday, especially after Jaden Daniels got hurt again.
Mm-hmm.
They basically just said, you know what, they were kind of taking their ball and went home. So also Tampa Bay, what the hell happened yesterday? No shade to Tyler Show, who had his best showing his career so far in his young career here, but that's the kind of that can come back to bite you, but especially you get the Panthers breathing down your necks who are on bye. And I know they're kind of licking their chops, the Panthers are after watching those games yesterday. And you say the same thing to Arizona. I mean, I don't know. There's going to be definitely some house cleaning there as well. We didn't expect them to win that game against the Rams. We knew they were going to dominate, but a little bit more of an effort. I mean, Brissett did his thing and such, but it's just unfortunately. And I guess it might be time to clean house over there as well. And the Bears, just for my bonus one for the Bears, just for the awful call on that last possession. But I digress.
All right, Week 14 wraps up tonight on the Monday Night Football on ABC and ESPN as the 8-4 Philadelphia Eagles travel to Los Angeles to take on the Los Angeles Chargers in an interconference matchup from SoFi Stadium. Philadelphia is favored by 2.5 points. I forgot who Christine, the Queen Manica, picked, but yours surely picked the Eagles, assuming that Justin Herbert will not play. LaKeena, whoever you picked last Friday, are you changing your mind or are you sticking with your original pick?
I got the Eagles, and I'm gonna because they're not gonna be in a very good mood after what happened to the Bears last weekend. I don't know what to think about the Chargers. There's too many injuries, especially on that O line. So yeah, I think that's why I'm giving them the edge there. But also Herbert might still be iffy. So again, that might be another thing. So you might see a lot of Trey Lance out there tonight. I'm sure they're going to want to. Well, I think the Eagles got a couple guys on defense as well, but I'm sure the Eagles are definitely going to want to redeem themselves in a get right game. But it should be a fun one out there in SoFi.
All right. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 opens its doors following this time out. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. When we return, the college football playoff for 2025, the field is set, and a couple of teams have taken their balls, no pun intended, and going home crying to mama. We'll tell you who those teams are. In college basketball, the Fighting Illini finally got a big win over the weekend. We'll tell you how they got that victory done. The Chicago Bulls, as the now late great Michael Ray Richardson once said, ship S-H-I-P-P. Ship S-H-I-P, I should say. Ship be sinking. Will the Bulls ever get out of it, from beneath the waters of NBA hell this season? We'll give you a synopsis on that. And the baseball winter minis has started on the West Coast. We'll give you the latest rumors from both our Chicago teams. And we have a special feel-good edition of Old School TV Monday. That and a whole lot more. You're listening to Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a romance sport. What? It's a romance sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Everybody in a work zone is someone's somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports on the Football Monday edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live and living in color right here on Sports So Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, again, IG.
As we kick off hour number 2, discussing the college football playoff, reviewing championship weekend, and I guess we had to dive into the Bulls at some point to kick off hour number 2. If you have any questions or comments regarding these topics, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the opening screen for you.
All right, so we'll do this first with the conference championship. If you will, James Madison, they win the Sun Belt. Tulane, much to our girl Leila Rahimi from the Score Chagrin, they beat the Green Wave, beat her North Texas, Texas Mean Green to win the American. Texas Tech thrash BYU to win the Big 12. No problem with Georgia as they beat Alabama, including a block punt right on cue. Shout out to Chris Fowler from ABC ESPN for that, calling that one, that block punt that set up Georgia and that set up that first touchdown, and that kind of that kind of opened the floodgates there as well for them as they win their third out of the last 5 years in the SEC title right there as well. Also, Indiana with their first outright Big Ten championship game. Big Ten championship since 1945, the first since 1967. I don't even think Coach Singani was born yet. And Duke wins their first ACC title since Steve Spurrier was over there coaching them all the way back in 1989 before he left for Florida. Derailing Virginia, unfortunately, and the ACC shot the ACC. And it's actually the same Duke team that lost to Illinois earlier in the season. So go figure with that one. So Sid, any thoughts on some of these conference championship games?
I was rooting hard for Texas Tech to beat BYU. Of course, we all know why. We'll get into that in just a sec. But the Red Raiders put on a dominating performance. 13 points in unanswered points in that second quarter for Texas Tech. That's what did them in. Of course, that momentum carried over into the second half. Texas Tech star quarterback Baron Morton had a great game. 20-33, 215 yards and 2 touchdown passes. Their star wide receiver Reggie Virgil, 8 catches for 86 yards. So Texas Tech showed their dominance in that Big 12 championship game. It was not a contest from the second quarter on. I want to discuss with you the SEC championship. Now, I did had a chance to take a nap, a long one, by the way, on Saturday. When I woke up, it was 21-0 Georgia. I had Alabama winning the game. I said as a fan, I'm cheering for Georgia. Georgia's defense was very impressive, in my opinion, as you mentioned, with the punt block from their special teams. But Alabama just got dominated. Ty Simpson, I know he had a touchdown pass off of 19-39 passes, but in my opinion, I thought he struggled. But on the flip side for Georgia, they're offensively they didn't have any guys that stood out, in my opinion, outside Mr. Nate Frazier at running back. But it was their defense that carried the day. In Alabama, I know many people will question that should a 10-3 team be in this year's college football playoff. We'll dig into all that coming up. But shout out to Georgia with a dominating performance in their backyard. They deserved it all the way. I definitely want to discuss this with you, LaKeena. Indiana beating Ohio State. Ryan Day going for that field goal in the fourth quarter, which the kicker ended up missing. I said coming into the game, as we talked about last Friday on the show, how well Indiana shut down Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State. He did have 8 catches for 144 yards, but they said let Jeremiah Smith do what he does best. Let's shut everybody else down. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, Lois Moore had a key interception there for Indiana. That kind of, broke things up a little bit. Now, unfortunately, yeah, that doink, that was a doink, and I know, unfortunately, Bears fans, know that doink very well. When fielding missed that that chip, that 43-yard field goal that would have tied it and perhaps maybe would have forced overtime. But yeah, I mean, Mendoza had that big throw that kind of sealed that win for Indiana. And it's sort of one of those things where you're just like, I think Ohio State kind of, just showed you that they could, who just kind of gave you the formula. So, if you let Smith do his thing and just have everybody else, try to sit on everybody else and, see what happens. And look, that's exactly what happened on Saturday. So, yeah, I think that whole thing with Indiana and Ohio State, that game was just a very entertaining to watch. And I think Indiana has arrived. The fact that Singay has been able to do this in only two short years is just nothing short of incredible. Now, as far as I talked about the Georgia-Alabama because Alabama has had a lot of injuries. So, unfortunately, that kind of came back to bite them, on Saturday with the SEC title game. Duke, I mean, look, they blew that lead. Virginia came back, but Duke made the plays they needed to. I mean, Darian Mensah, I should say, 2 TDs, passes and such. And like I said, it was the defense for Duke that kind of made things easier for them late. So unfortunately, no one was going to. Duke wasn't going to go to the playoff. Unfortunately, they have the 5 losses, so that wasn't going to happen. But yeah, it's definitely one of those. It was very odd, like some of the stuff that shook out here over the weekend.
Yep. Now that you mentioned that the college football playoff field is set, of course, Notre Dame is out by virtue of Texas Tech beating BYU, and with Alabama losing their conference title game, they have 3 losses there in a tournament. If you're Notre Dame, I know they took their ball and went home. We're not going to participate in whatever bowl game we're eligible for. Of course, Notre Dame and Miami played in an opening weekend of the season down there in South Beach on Labor Day weekend, and Miami beat Notre Dame in a close game. But Notre Dame had a second loss a couple of weeks later at home to Texas A&M. I know the committee, one of the members of the committee I saw on television said yesterday that the head-to-head loss by Notre Dame, that's what kept them out of the playoff, college football playoff field. And I get where the committee was coming from, but I think if that metric, that statement is true, the committee did its job. Now, how did Alabama sneak in there with 3 losses? I don't know. You can't make that argument that Notre Dame deserves to be in there over Alabama. I can grant you that argument, but if you thought that Notre Dame belonged in that tournament over Miami, in my opinion, you're crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, I know that Louisville loss, SMU also were bad losses, but unfortunately, that team did not, Notre Dame did not look like one of the top teams in the playoff. They didn't, because they were this close to losing to Boston College. They were at a couple other slow starts. So unfortunately, I think that kind of, they kind of came across as the entitled knuckleheads that people have been saying for like the last 50 years about the Notre Dame football program. You just proved to them why. And I know their AD has been making the rounds, kind of trying to defend their decision and such. I know people will be saying, Pete Vacqua, who is the AD over there at Notre Dame, and basically trying to say, well, look, I mean, the ACC basically told us, to F off and such. Well, look, the ACC champ isn't going. Miami got them because they beat y'all earlier this season. So, you can't really use that as an excuse either. So, yeah, it's just kind of silly. And look, maybe Coach Reed doesn't like Pop-Tarts. Maybe he doesn't like his kids eat Pop-Tarts. I don't know. But maybe they didn't want to go to the Pop-Tarts Bowl or whatever. But, if you look at who made the playoff, of course, James Madison, they'll face Oregon in one first-rounder. Alabama, Oklahoma. They already beat them earlier, a couple weeks ago. Tulane beat Ole Miss. We'll see how Ole Miss is, especially with Lane Kiffin not there. And Miami, they face A&M, Texas A&M out there in College Station. Indiana, Ohio State, Texas Tech, and Georgia are your top 4 who get buys in the quarterfinals. So, but yeah, I know people will look at JMU and Tulane being in there like, well, why didn't they? Well, look, you can play the ACC for that, folks. Play Virginia for not playing not winning the ACC title game. That's why you're seeing 2, and it's just unfortunate. But yeah, and look, people say, well, it's turning to the basketball part where you get 64 teams. They might as well do that with some play. Well, I mean, look, I know Tulane and Ole Miss have already played each other. I know Ole Miss kicked their butts. That might be the case in a couple of weeks. Who knows? But it's definitely, I think all these group of 5 teams, they just want opportunities. I guess, look, you got to give them the opportunity. So Again, you never know what's going to happen, but it's kind of like weird how all this sort of shaking out. But it's hilarious how some of the takes this last couple of days.
Yeah, like I said, the committee got it right. And like I said, you could make the argument Notre Dame should be in over Alabama. Okay, I grant you that. There's always going to be an argument in the loophole somewhere, but I think all in all, the committee got it right. And I think there's going to be some great moments and great games. I know those games you mentioned they'll start next week. We'll do a deep dive into those games coming up on our shows next week. But just take a look at some of these big time matchups. Alabama, Oklahoma. You mentioned they already played earlier in the year. I think that's going to be a great game. I'm really looking forward to this Texas A&M in the University of Miami, kick it off next Saturday from College Station. I think that's going to be a classic game as well. You mentioned Miami with those two bad losses in the middle of the year. They came back and bounced back strong with Carson Beck there, star quarterback, talking about for the Hurricanes that have played. He has played well over these last few weeks. In Texas A&M, they had a hiccup toward the end of the year, even though they did finish 11-1. Like you said, Ole Miss, they could be the wild card because, like you said, Lane Kiffin's no longer there. Maybe Tulane pulls out the upset there. You never know. And of course, we probably know what Oregon's going to do to James Madison. But I think this first round of the college football playoff is going to be something special.
Yeah, it should be. So let me just see what happens. So the rest of the bowl games were announced yesterday. This after Kansas State, Baylor, all said that look, we're not playing in these bowl games. I mean, okay. And also Iowa State.
And they were fined $500,000 each school.
Yeah, also as well as Iowa State. I know Matt Campbell is going to Penn State. He just had an opening presser with them. All right. Okay. They got the fine too, $500,000. That's a Big 12. But look, there's some bowl games and such. I know Memphis, the other face NC State in the Union Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. Let's see here. Northwestern will face Central Michigan at Ford Field in the Game Above Sports Bowl. New Mexico and Minnesota, they're going to be in Phoenix for the Rate Bowl. Let's see. Penn State and Clemson, that should be a good one. The Pinstripe Bowl, right Yankee Stadium. The Pop-Tarts Bowl, of course, is actually Notre Dame was supposed to go to this bowl game, but instead it'll be Georgia Tech and BYU. Should be a fun one. First, Sixers should probably win that one. Virginia, Missouri, that's going to be the Gator Bowl coming up. I believe that's that's in the 27th of December. So the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl, you got Miami of Ohio and Arizona State, LSU and Houston. Yeah, LSU and Houston in the Texas Bowl, just in Houston. That's where they're going to be playing the same stadium. A good one here in that Music City Bowl, of course, Tennessee and Illinois and Nashville. That should be a good one. That's going to be on December 30th. The Borough Alamo Bowl, USC and TCU in San Antonio. Iowa and Vandy in the Quest Bowl, Arizona State and Duke in the Sun Bowl, the Toyota Tiger Sun Bowl. The Citrus Bowl will be Michigan and Texas, Nebraska and Utah in the Las Vegas Bowl. Let's see here, and Arizona and SMU in the Holiday Bowl. That's going to be on January 2nd. So some good bowl games coming up this bowl season. So I know people will say that the bowl season is meaningless now, but look, these guys, they want to, especially the 5th and 6th year guys. I mean, they're not going to have another shot. So all these teams are deciding that we're not going to these bowl games. Okay, y'all, look, okay, but again, hopefully this is not a trend. But you're hurting the kids more than you're hurting yourselves because you're not going to get that money either.
Yeah, like I said, it all comes down to money at the end of the day. As the great actor Wesley Snipes, aka Nino Brown, said in that movie New Jack City, and one of my top 5 rappers of all time, Kool Moe Dee, also once said, "Money talks, BS runs the marathon." So for all those schools that want to ditch their bowl games for whatever reason, like you say, you're not hurt. You're more hurting yourselves in the athletes that work their butts off all year to play for an opportunity to play in a bowl / postseason game. So you're hurting the kids more at the end. You're hurting yourself and your image of the program. So hopefully Notre Dame will learn their lesson. I don't know if they ever will, but you're really hurting the kids at the end, and this is just not a good look.
All right. So these games are gonna be in a couple weeks, the playoff games, and we'll talk more about that next week. As the Second Seed Sports on Sports Chicago, LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you. We got a few more minutes left before we go to break. I guess we'll do some NBA and get that out the way. Well, the Bulls go over this week. They lose to Indiana on Friday. Siakam had 36 points. Kobe White had 22. And well, yesterday they lose to the Steph Curry-less Warriors. Brandon Podolski, he had 21 points. JD only had 18. But you remember the Bulls were 6-1, Sid, early in the season? Good times. Seems like about
it seemed like ages ago. Yeah, it seemed like ages ago now. I was getting ready to say.
Good times, unfortunately. But yeah, oh gosh. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like I said, I'm lucky I can't watch the game, so don't skin off my butt. But
here's the thing, LaKeena. Last night, now after the Bears game, of course, I'm dejected for about 5 minutes, but reality said it for me. Like, okay, the Bears lost, whatever, move on. I turned to CHSN. I said, let me watch. I really didn't want to do it, but I kind of had to for the show.
Mm-hmm.
After 2 minutes, I turned the damn game off. Now, I would say that they run. Now, I would say as a joke that the Run TMC come back, Mitch Richmond, Tim Hardaway, and Chris Mullin, all three of them in Hall of Fame, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that did Run TMC make its return last night. I would say that did Chris Webber make a performance. I would say as a joke that Don Nelson coach on the sidelines last night. I'm not going to make that joke. What I'm going to say here is, and we talked about it a little bit before the show, that Bulls team, remember we talked about a couple weeks ago that Ayo Dosunmu found that New Orleans loss. He said that, I'm just paraphrasing, he said that this group is like a bunch of little kids. Individually, some of us does what the coach tells us to do, but as a group, we just ignore him. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you have the situation is now, I'm not going to say that they quit, but I know they got a couple of guys back in Zach Collins in particular. But at this point, they're just running around with their heads cut off, to be honest with you, LaKeena. This is an embarrassment. You lost by 32 points last night. Remember, you said no Steph Curry. They did not have Draymond Green either.
Nope.
What the hell happened? This is just an embarrassment at this point. I'm not going to sit here and say don't go to the games. I'm not going to sit here and say that don't buy any merchandise. That's not gonna stop. But what can you do at this point? Only really thing that you could do at this point is put heat on Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley. But the management reward them over some with the contract extensions. But Sid, what else can we do? Other than, like you said, LaKeena, don't watch them. Maybe they'll send a small message, but outside of that, what else is realistic here?
Well, on the bright side, at least they don't play again until Friday against the Hornets. So, EA.
And they lost to them over a week ago, a couple weeks ago on the road.
So you don't have to watch any Bulls games most of this week. So I guess that's the bright side. But yeah, let's talk some actual good basketball. The Lakers, after we figured that they would lose to Boston, and they did. They got they lost by 21 on Friday, but nice bounce back win for the Lakers against Philadelphia, 112-108. So Luka Doncic's back after paternity leave, 31 points, 29 points for LeBron. All 5 stars were double figures for the Lakers as they held off the Sixers. OKC, no trouble. Utah, Memphis beat Portland, Denver beat Charlotte. Speaking of Charlotte, Boston again they beat Toronto, and the Knicks with a nice win against Orlando. Speaking of Orlando by 6 points. So some good basketball that happened over the weekend.
Yeah, I had a chance to watch the majority of that 76ers Lakers game from last night. They were a very entertaining game than that Bulls Warriors. I tell you that right now. But LeBron James returned to action as well. Actually, he looked good. He was 4 or 6 from downtown. Luka Doncic, as you mentioned, he made his return. Made a couple of key free throws last night to seal that win for the Lakers. Philadelphia, they had Paul George and Joel Embiid back. Both of them in limited action. They both looked good, but they missed some key rebounds down the stretch, and their shots weren't falling when they needed to down the stretch. So the Lakers, they're looking good right now. I'm not saying they're going to the NBA Finals. I'm not saying they're going to overtake OKC for that top spot in the West, but their role players, as we talked about for the last few weeks on the show, they are playing very well right now, especially with DeAndre Ayton and Austin Reeves.
They've looked really good. Now Saturday, just obviously the winners: Dallas, Minnesota with a nice win over the Clippers. The Kings beat Miami. Detroit over Milwaukee. Golden State by Pat Spencer's career high 19 as they beat Cleveland. Atlanta looks like they're starting to heat up. Jalen Johnson's 30 points. And Brooklyn beat New Orleans 119-101. Michael Porter Jr. tied a career high 35.
Yeah, quietly in the Western Conference League, we talked about the Lakers and OKC earlier. The Mavericks, I know some people still may look at the season as a lost season, but they're starting to play well. Anthony Davis is healthy for now, and Cooper Flack is starting to figure it out. So the Mavericks are starting to make some noise a little bit, even though they still have 8-9 wins. But the Minnesota Timberwolves quietly, they climbing up the charts. So I know they got handled by OKC in last year's Western Conference Finals in 5 games, but they're quietly making some noise. So Anthony Edwards, of course, say, "Hey, take a look at us. We started to make some noise. You got to pay attention to us now."
Well, yeah, it's not just him. McDaniel's had a really solid season so far. Nas Reed's been really good for them as well. So yeah, I think Minnesota, they're kind of quietly. I know some people thought that maybe there's no way they can go back to the Western Conference Finals. They've been kind of quiet, and then they're 15-8, and I know they got their butts. Well, the Thunder's been into a lot of teams this year, so no one should feel bad about that. Now, speaking of the Thunder, they beat up the Mavericks in Friday's games real quick. Philly over Milwaukee, Memphis over the Clippers, Houston beat Phoenix, the Hornets over the Raptors, Knicks no trouble with Utah, Detroit over Portland, Cleveland over San Antonio, Denver over Atlanta, Orlando over Miami. And of course, we talked about that. No LeBron, no Luka. That's why the Celtics were able to beat the Lakers pretty handily on Friday.
Yeah, just a couple of observations here quickly. First, in the Eastern Conference, Toronto is going through a tough stretch right now. Even though I said last week that Brandon Ingram is playing like an all-star with the sidekick next to Scotty Barnes. Detroit Pistons are continuing to impress me. They are very good. Give JB Biggerstaff credit for keeping those guys on a high level, even though they've been dealing with some injuries too all year. And of course, Milwaukee, they're going through. Of course, Giannis, as we mentioned, he's injured. He'll be reevaluated with the next 4 to 6 weeks. They're going through right now. And of course, out west, the Houston Rockets continue to be right there with Kevin Durant and some of those young guys. Phoenix they're going through it right now after that upset win a week ago today against the Lakers. They're going through it right now injury-wise without Devin Booker. So we'll see what happens there. But that Eastern Conference is starting to become competitive. Of course, Boston's starting to find their way, even though they don't have Jason Tatum. As we knew that going into the season, he's going to be lost for the year after injuring his Achilles in last year's playoffs. Detroit's still up there at number 1. Cleveland, they're still trying to find their way here a little bit. They've been dealing with the injury bug too. And if you're a Chicago fan, bringing it back to the Bulls real quickly, you should be frustrated at management for not being aggressive, not just to make another move to be competitive this year. You know that the Eastern Conference after New York and Cleveland were going to be down. Look what's happening now, as I just mentioned. Detroit's up there number 1. Will they finish number 1? I don't know, but they're a very good damn basketball team. The Knicks are going to be there, and Milwaukee's struggling right now. If you're the Bulls, what realistically do you expect from them between now and the trade deadline outside of Nikolai Vucevic possibly being out of here?
All right.
I don't get it.
Yeah, a light schedule for this week in the NBA. Of course, it's tonight you got Sacramento and Indiana. Your Peacock game, well, this game actually looked good about a week ago if Booker didn't get hurt. Phoenix and Minnesota, that'll be exclusively on Peacock. San Antonio and New Orleans at 7 o'clock. That's your schedule for Monday, for tonight.
All right, your NBA Cup quarterfinals will start on Tuesday, and these games will be at the team's home arenas. The Orlando Magic will host the Miami Heat. That's at 5 o'clock on Prime Video, followed by the Toronto Raptors and the New York Knicks from Toronto. That's at 7:30, only on Prime Video. Those two games on Tuesday will be the NBA Cup quarterfinals.
Your second group of quarterfinals, those will all be on Prime as well. Since Prime's got the exclusive for the quarterfinals and the finals, you got Phoenix and OKC at 6:30 on Wednesday, and San Antonio and the Lakers at 9 o'clock is your late game air for those are the other half of the quarterfinals in the NBA Cup.
All right, your schedule for Thursday looks like this. Only 4 games as we get back to normal scheduling. The Clippers will face the Houston Rockets. The Boston Celtics will face the injury-riddled Milwaukee Bucks in Wisconsin. Portland, they have definitely come back down to earth, and they're currently 6 games under 500. They'll continue their road trip at New Orleans, and the Denver Nuggets will face the Sacramento Kings. That's your schedule for Thursday and for this upcoming week in the National Basketball Association.
Really quick break. Our sports potpourri segment is coming up next as a little college hoops, as some nice wins over the weekend for Illinois and also Duke as well on the road at the Breslin Center over in East Lansing. And bone to pick your portion of here. Baseball, of course. Could the Cubs be on their way to signing a big time pitcher? And I got a bone to pick with the Hall of Fame Veterans Committee. And of course, especially to Old School TV Monday and so much more. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Our sports potpourri segment coming up right after this.
Poof!
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey,
this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live and living in color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's LaKeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow McGee on the Twitter, X, and he was getting an IG.
This is our sports potpourri segment. This is our last break of the show for today. So if you have any questions or comments of any of this discussions on any other topics that we had discussed thus far in today's show, you definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena, we get the up on the screen for you.
Off to the hardwood. We say the hardwood, but this time in the college hoops variety, as Arizona, they grabbed the #1 spot after Purdue just got blasted by Iowa State. Milan Mojkilovic had 20 points for Iowa State as they just hammered Purdue 81-58. I think no one's surprised about the Iowa State could win, but the fact that they beat Purdue out, just basically out tough them, outrun them, and they were much better for 3-point range, only shooting 48%. And DJ Holzenberger has done a great job with the Iowa State program. This is their third straight win against a top #1 seed team. So a nice win for Iowa State.
Shout out to my guy Penny Hardaway. I saw that he won over the weekend. They beat Baylor 78-71. And you mentioned about the final line 9. Almost forgot about this game, LaKeena, because focusing on college football a little bit. They beat Tennessee in the Music City Madness Bowl 75-62. Andrei Stojakovic, yes, his father, the NBA great Peja Stojakovic, he had a big game for the now 72 final line 9. And here we talked about this before, LaKeena, a couple weeks ago. As I told you, I watched that game against Alabama. The Illini have some very good shooters. Yes, Stojakovic and Mirotic, Mikovic, I should say. Both those guys can shoot it, and both of them can take the ball to the basket. But outside of their point guard, Colin Boswell, they don't have anybody else that, in my opinion, they can break down the defense. And as you said, when it comes to rebounding, and they're going to be out rebounded by these much more bigger and athletic teams. I like the shooters, but you got to get a little bit more tougher on defense now. They got away with it against Tennessee last Saturday night, even though Tennessee dominated them on the boards. But shooting's not going to be there all the time. You got to find other ways to win.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see if Illinois. Like I said, it's going to be the quick teams that will be Illinois. Tennessee's quick, but they can't shoot the three, so that kind of killed them on Saturday. So we'll see what happens with both teams down the line here. Michigan, no trouble with Rutgers. They've dominated this year. You probably say that they got some first place votes as well. Duke behind Cam Bruisers 18. They beat Michigan State over there at East Lansing. Louisville beat Indiana in that little battle out there. I think they were out there in India, I believe. Ryan Cromwell had 21 points for Louisville. Houston, no trouble with Florida State. St. John's beat Ole Miss. Washington upset USC in Big Ten play. Arkansas, no trouble with Fresno State. Ohio State, I saw a little bit of this game. They beat Northwestern, held them off. That was a fun game, 86-82 here. Any other, let me see the games. So no, Loyola. We'll see if they can get back on track. They beat Princeton. I know they've struggled a lot this year, so hopefully they can get back on track. Iowa beat Maryland. They're undefeated right now. Seton Hall, they beat Kansas State. I think they only have one loss. They've seen the Pirates do, so they could probably be a team to look out for in the Big East. UCLA held off Oregon. Let's see here.
Congrats, real quick, LaKeena. Shout out to our good friend and colleague Joshua M. Hicks from Joshua M. Hicks. He's a DePaul alumnus as well. DePaul beat Arkansas Pine Bluff 76-72. I know they're 7-3, I believe, on the year now. As we talked about for the last few years, actually they do well in non-conference schedule, but once they get into Big East play, it all goes downhill. Can this trend ever reverse itself?
Well, remember they lost to Buffalo. I'm not talking about Josh Allen and them, not the Bills. Talk about the Bulls from the MAC. Remember they lost. They also lost to Northwest.
Yeah.
Yeah, also lost to Northwestern earlier this season too. They were actually down for like an early part of the second half against that Pine Bluff squad, but they got back into an NJ Pinson had 26 points shot. I think like 3 for 5 from 3-point range. That kind of led the way to come back there. New Mexico beat Santa Clara. Arizona State, they've been playing very well so far this year. I'm talking about Bobby Hurley's guys. They're 7-2. They beat Porter Moser and the Jerry Colangelo Classic out there just outside of Phoenix where the Suns play, I believe. So yeah, so a nice look. If you've been in college football mode these last couple months and you're starting against the college hoops mode, you should. Speaking of Alabama, they had no trouble with UT San Antonio. Gonzaga beat North Florida. Texas Tech beat LSU. Kansas, they with Darren Peterson, he's back. So that gave them a nice little boost there. They beat Mizzou in their annual rivalry game there. Four Big 12 rivals, I should say. North Carolina, no trouble with Georgetown. Nebraska beat Creighton. Fred Hoiberg and his guys, they're playing very well so far. They're 9-0. That's a nice one that they had over Creighton. I know Creighton's rebuilding, but still, when you beat your in-state rival, I think this is their third straight win over Creighton. So they've kind of had Creighton's number recently. So let's see. Yeah, that's about it for that one for this weekend in college hoops. Now for some of the games that are coming up this week, tomorrow, Tuesday, Michigan hosts Villanova. That should be a fun one. That's going to be on FS1. Clemson and BYU. That's going to be on ESPN at 5:30 tomorrow. Illinois versus Ohio State. That game is going to be exclusively streaming on Peacock, so you got to have Peacock in order to watch that game. That should be a fun one out there in Columbus. Let's see here. Oh, Florida and UConn. About the last couple of national champions out there in MSG. Oh, that should be a fun one out there. And USC versus former coach Steve, USC coach Steve Lapp in San Diego, his Torinos. That's going to be on ESPN too. So getting a little love there for their former colleagues. So that should be a fun one, especially after USC losing. So that they may be extra motivated tomorrow.
Yeah, speaking of Wednesday, number 23 Nebraska will host Wisconsin on Wednesday at 8 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. You mentioned Nebraska 9-0, the Badgers at 7-2, and then on Thursday, there was a couple of games that. No, it's not Thursday. Let's go back to Wednesday. It was another game that I was looking forward to. Purdue and Minnesota before that at 6 p.m. on Wednesday on the Big Ten Network. You mentioned Purdue with Matt Painter and that crew, and we'll see if they can get back on track. They're 8-1 on the year.
Our buddy KSTP, Alec Osmon's friend of the show, he said that we'll see what Purdue's going to be in a great mood when they face Minnesota. I know Minnesota, they've already upset Indiana earlier last week. And Purdue, I don't know if you want to play them after that loss. I'm sure Matt Painter's going to get all his guys. And that might be take the over on that one. But Thursday, that should be a good one. Their annual Hawks-Side rivalry. The Cyclones and the Hawkeyes, Iowa versus Iowa State. That should be a fun one at 7 o'clock on FS1 on Thursday. That's always a fun one when those two teams play. So that should be a good one over there in Ames. I'm glad this kind of has ramped up in the last 15, 20 years. It's actually been a really good rivalry here with Iowa and Iowa State playing each other. Been a lot of fun. So and I expect that nothing less in this from this year's squad, especially after that nice win against Purdue. Iowa State's 9-0. Iowa's 8-1, I should say, so far. So that should be a fun one out there in Ames.
All right. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid LaKeena here with you. Of course, the winter meetings are taking place right now in San Diego on the left coast as we speak. I have it on Foul Territory here on YouTube, and of course, MLB Network is out there as well. LaKeena, let's start off with news that broke over the weekend, both on and off the field for the Chicago Cubs. We didn't get to the off the field part on Friday, but the Cubs cut their GM of the Marquee Sports Network. Now their head of business operations is taking over from Marquee. All the on-air personalities will be TV personalities will be back. I know there was a couple of people behind the scenes that were unfortunately let go, but on the field, rumor has it that Zach Gallen, who had a down year this past year for the Arizona Diamondbacks, yes, he was part of that team that lost to Texas in the World Series a couple of years ago, but he set out to look for a long-term deal. But the Cubs, they may grab him for a 2 or 3 year deal worth $20+ million a year, from what I've read. Is he worth it for Chicago's North Side Blue team?
Well, let's start. Well, let's start how this all kind of came about, because I guess what Bob Nightingale said there was a done deal, but Jeff Passan said, no, that's not the case. They're not even close to it. So he had to walk it back a little bit. Lots of editing with that tweet. And I saw like, oh wait, Zach Gallen. Well, then like, no, that ain't happening yet. But again, they're like, they also have been late to Alex Bregman, also Eugenio Suarez, and Tatsuya Amai. So could they sign one or two of those guys before the winning meetings are over with later this week? We'll see. So supposedly it's close with the Gallen deal, but I don't know. But again, we'll have to wait and see. But it might be a lot of incentives, especially with it after next season. It might be a work stoppage. So I'm wondering if a lot of these teams, with the exception of the Dodgers, of course, that are they going to be looking for these sort of big long-term deals? They're probably got to wait until once the labor stuff is finally settled. So if the Cubs could get a couple of those guys by the end of the week, I mean, it'd be great. Or even one. I'll just settle for one. But I think I expect the Cubs to be very active, and it looks like they're actually going to spend some money. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see if the Cubs can put their money where their mouth is, literally. So we'll see what happens in there. I think they still need another bet. Excuse me, I'm talking about the Chicago Cubs, especially if you lose Kyle Tucker. Now, Owen Casey had his moments last year when he was called up, especially during that 5-game series against the Brewers in early August, but he wasn't even added to the playoff roster. I know you may have to have an upgrade at catcher as well. Carson Kelly had a good year last year, even though he was back up to start the year. Of course, the injury to Miguel Amaya caused Carson Kelly to be your primary catcher, but you may have to upgrade there. Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki, they're set to be free agents after 2026, after next year. You may have to trade one or both of them to get that bat. Would you be opposed to trading either one of those guys to get that other big bat to fill out that lineup for Craig Counsell?
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what the
Cubs do. Would you trade either one or both those guys? Would you be opposed to it?
It depends on who you get on the back end. Like I said, I'm okay with trading one of those guys, but it better be like a superstar or a borderline superstar if I'm going to trade one of my top young guys. So we'll have to wait and see now. Now the White Sox, on the flip side, for the White Sox, I guess I don't know if well, they're waiting on the draft, I guess, if you're the White Sox. I know the Harold Bain is going to be out there representing the White Sox in the draft lottery coming up tomorrow for MLB. So we'll see. But yeah, I haven't seen the rumors about the White Sox yet anyway.
I think the main rumor will be how well, using air quotes, how well will Chris Getz sell Luis Robert Jr. to these contending teams? I know that we didn't talk about this on the show last week, but Sox Fest Live will be returning to the Remover Theater at the end of the month of January, and Luis Robert Jr.'s name is on that list. He's expected to appear, but if you Chris Getz, if you trade him, the White Sox will look stupid. But I think that's the number one selling point is will Luis Robert Jr. be traded before opening day next year? I still say no. Chris Getz is playing his cards close to his hand as possible. Their bullpen needs to be rebuilt. I know they signed. We talked about the signing that they had who played in the Korean Baseball League last week. You still need to beef up that starting rotation. You still need another starter too, and you need a left-handed bat first baseman / DH player. Like I said before, I'll say it again. Miguel Vargas is not it. We know Lennon Sosa is not a first baseman. His glove does not belong on the field. He's your backup DH. So you need a first baseman, preferably a left-handed first baseman who has some pop, i.e. Ryan O'Hearn. It could be your logical choice there. So the Sox have some work to do. Let's see if Chris Getz can be creative for some of the other pieces on this team that he can trade and perhaps get some needed pieces in return.
Yeah, Anthony Kiedis, who you're referring to, that played in the Korean baseball the last few years, the veteran left-hander. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Also, Mike Soroka has signed a 1-year deal with the D-backs pending a physical. So well, nice. After what happened after a tough showing last year for the Diamondbacks, we'll see if they can rebuild that starting rotation. Also, shout out to Jesse Rogers, Chicago's very own. He signed a new deal to stay at ESPN. He had to sign a multi-year extension to stay as the MLB insider. So congrats to Jesse Rogers there. A terrific,
the little guy.
Yeah, terrific player. A terrific former player personnel. Of course, he did he covered the Blackhawks when they had their run of 3 and 7 year Stanley Cup championships. He's now grown into baseball, so it's been kind of his member of the last decade. So yeah, shout out to him as well. Now, my bone to pick portion of this. Okay, well, congrats to Jeff Kent. He was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame by the Veterans Era Committee. Look, totally get it. Contemporary era. We talked about it early on and such, but he beat out guys like Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Don Mattingly, Dale Murphy, and of course also Gary Sheffield. We talked about a couple of months ago. Also among some others, of course, like Fernando Valenzuela. He was also part of that. But Sheffield, Clemens, and Bonds only got fewer than 5 votes, so they won't be in the ballot for like another 5 years. So, okay.
The floor is yours.
I'm gonna keep it short and sweet now. As the steroid era guys, I was talking to our buddy Dave Kerner, of course, friend of the show from the former WBBM news radio sports anchor reporter. The eras, I guess they're gonna wait till they're all dead, I guess. But what? Why? The steroid era in baseball, you can't pretend it didn't happen. You let Big Papi in, and he was suspected. Okay,
Ivan Punch Rodriguez is in too.
Both first ballot guys. So, all right. And Dale Murphy, who's a 2-time NL MVP, why is he already in the Hall of Fame? Damn it. And Don Mattingly as well. Look, I admire Dale Murphy. He's been as classy as he can in the last couple of years. Why he hasn't been in. He's a lot more classier than I am because I'd be, cursing up like a sailor here. But again, he's a lot classier than I am. But really, baseball committee, you're gonna get all high. Okay, go ahead, Sid. Yeah, because I'm gonna start cursing in a second.
I know that it's supposed to be this new wave of voters coming in. So we got to ask our guy Eugene McIntosh from Instabix. I think he has a Hall of Fame vote. I think he's eligible. So. I think he's eligible right now. If not in the next year.
This year?
I don't know if he is. We got to ask him next time we bring him on the show. But my position was that whenever these new voters come in, you'll start to see some of those guys from that steroid era get into the Hall of Fame because we grew up with those guys, watching them. We knew what kind of impact they had before they allegedly took steroids. So I'm with you. I don't get it. Jeff Kent, he was a very good player. Yes, we had his issues with Bonds and some of his other teammates, but what else is new in that department? But I know it's an exclusive club of the greatest of the greats, but it's starting to look like for the Hall of Fame, they're just trying to let any and everybody in with the quote-unquote clean image. That may be slightly part of it. We know that there's some guys in all Hall of Fames that had a checker pass. Ty Cobb, for example, and Dennis Rodman to a lesser extent in the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame, just saying. But it seems like to me we're getting to the point in baseball, it's like it's starting to become an image popularity contest instead of the best guys who should be in there. You want to throw Curt Schilling's name in there who should be in the Hall of Fame, that's fine. I know he said in the last few years that he didn't care if he was elected to a Baseball Hall of Fame or not, but he has the numbers that's awarded a Hall of Fame induction, in my opinion. So it seems to me that it's become a popularity contest who has the cleanest public image to get in the Hall of Fame, not based on the impact of what they had in the game. And will the Baseball Hall of Fame be as impactful that it has become over the years? I don't know, but it's at a crossroads right now as we speak.
Yeah, and this notion of Jeff Kent, who I adore, 5-time All-Star, was MVP in 2000. But over Dale Murphy, over Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, or even Don Mattingly to some extent. Yeah, I think you just made. I think you just proved. You just made your own point, Sid, about because Jeff Kent, of course, very personable guy. If you saw his interview on MLB Network yesterday after he got in, the Hall of Fame, very personable, very a good guy. But I'm glad Brian Kenny kind of like gave him the what for and sort of like did kind of like what I did. And he gave it classy too. He was like, really? You're not going to let but yeah, I mean, I think you might be honest. I say where they are saying they might want the cleanest image and the good guy and whatever. But all right, but again, look at all every Hall of Fame, all before major sports. Some of those guys are not good guys. So and gals too. Obviously, the Basketball Hall of Fame. Some of them are not really good people either. But I digress.
All right, you listen to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena here with you. We still have a couple minutes left remaining in our show today. Before we close it out with the feel-good edition of Old School TV Monday, any last minute thoughts of any other topics we had discussed so far, or something that you may have forgotten that you wanted to mention now?
No, not really. I mean, they've announced I guess there's going to be doing the college football playoff games coming up. Of course, as we suspected that of course Fowler and Herbie are going to be doing the games as such. So we all kind of figured that's going to happen and whatever. But I think one of the other kind of like Laura Rush is going to be a very busy bee these next few weeks. Of course, she's going to be doing a sideline with Holly Rowe for that first round game between Oklahoma and Alabama. Sean McDonough, Gray McElroy, Molly McGrath, and Taylor McGregor. They'll be doing the Miami Texas A&M game coming up next Saturday. Joe Tessitore, Jesse Palmer, and Katie George and Quinn Kesnick will do Tulane and Ole Miss. And James Madison will get Bob with Shoes of Louis Riddick, yay! Chris Button and Story Bonomi. And remember, those games are sub-licensed on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. So, because of that deal that they had with ESPN, so those games will be still be produced by ESPN, but it'll be airing on TNT and HBO Max because of other commitments and such. Yep.
All right, let's close out today's show with as usual, as we end our shows on Mondays with Old School TV Monday. Despite what happened and with yesterday's results of the Bears-Packers game from throughout the season, and to salute the monsters of the Midway from 1985 on Old School TV Monday. This week we'll salute the November 3rd, 1985 contest. Yes, the refrigerator came out of hibernation. The rookie defensive tackle, he caught her, and of course Jesse Clark of the Packers had a 55-yard touchdown pass from Jim Zorn. And get Aldell Greco, that's right. And of course, in the fourth quarter, Steve McMichael tackled Jim Zorn for a safety, and the late great Walter Payton capped off the day with a 27-yard run down the sideline to clinch the 6-point victory for Chicago, improving that Bears record to 9-0. Of course, if you know the backstory of that game, of course, the Bears had horse manure sitting in their locker as they came into the stadium in 1985. Of course, the Bears, Walter Payton was shoved violently to the bench. Of course, he got his revenge by scoring that game-clinching touchdown at the end there. And, of course, the refrigerator Perry scored one of his 3 touchdown scores during that season as well. So the Bears eked out the 6-point win over the Green Bay Packers, 16-10. The Bears improved their record then to a 9-0 on their way to a 15-1 season. The Packers were 3-6.
Yeah, that horse manure thing. I remember reading about that early on, and it was kind of funny how that kind of shaped out here. Now it was on CBS, of course. Yeah, that was the NFC, CBS in the 80s and whatnot. Now there was a lot of there were a lot of cheap shots. There were lots of bad blood between these two teams. Not as bad as it was yesterday. Though there was a lot of respect after the game was over with. Now, Walter had a break. I don't want to say breakthrough, but he rushed for 192 yards. So that kind of broke the kind of had his breakout moment there. The safety was definitely on that fourth quarter was definitely a momentum shift in that game because the Packers were right there. It wasn't like the Bears dominated them. So the 16-10, but that safety from McMichael tackling Zorn in the end zone that kind of broke the game open right there and gave Bears momentum. They were able to stay undefeated at 9-0. So that whole game. Of course, you watch that game on YouTube. I know that people have been trying to find that particular one. I know the first meeting is on YouTube, but the second game is on YouTube for Week 9. So, but I think that definitely was a kind of a pivotal game for the Bears. Going into that being undefeated in the conference.
Yeah, and the Bears defense had 3 sacks, including 2 by Hall of Famer Dan Hampton and the other one by the late great Steve McMichael, who also had a safety in that game. And calling that game that day for CBS was Tim Bryant. And of course, if you grew up here in Chicago like we did in the 80s, Johnny Morris was the analyst for CBS for that game. That crew did about 4 or 5 Bears games earlier that year before Madden and Summerall took over after Thanksgiving. After that, Dallas Cowboys 44-0 fiasco, which we did earlier this year for Old School TV Monday. So even though we didn't like the results that happened yesterday, we can take it back to the good old days, and that's what we decided to do for this week's edition of Old School TV Monday. LaKeena, close us out.
You follow by Keena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sidney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Now, if you missed any of our previous segments or our previous shows and our interviews and our picks, don't worry. You can catch Sports Chicago's anytime, anywhere on the Sports Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. You can catch replays on the replays of our show, Sean Sierra Sports, the Smoke Fellas, and all of the great content. Catch it right here, anytime, anywhere on the Facebook, the Sports Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
All right, another weather's been a little bit iffy out there, but enjoy all the basketball, both pro and college, both men and women. Excuse me. And of course, winter means we'll make sure you guys take a look out for that. Also, we'll have the Heisman. I believe we'll have the Heisman. The Heisman, finals will be announced. I think tonight, or I think tomorrow night or tonight. So we'll make sure you guys check that out as well. And so much more. Of course, stay warm out there and stay dry, and just be good.
Also, too, real quick. Don't forget this Wednesday, 8:00 p.m. Central Standard Time on ESPN, the 30 for 30 of the Stuart Scott story. We'll give you a Cisco and Ebert review for that documentary on Friday's show.
Yep. So make sure you guys check that out as well. So for Sid, I'm LaKeena with Second City Sports on Sports Chicago, and we'll see you guys on Friday.
Still bear down. Holla!